Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So I don't see any questions yet in the GoToMeeting toolbar, so I think right now I'm going to show you some quick tips for trying to speed through some Edge presentations. I know that a lot of the feedback I get is it just takes me too long to do this, so I'm going to show you some time-saving measures that should help you quite a bit here. There is one question from David real quick. He says, I have Edge on my smartphone, but I do not see recordings in history. Do I need to do something else? Oh, great question, David. So here's how the app works. The app is really just a viewer. So it's not looking at your Edge account for anything. The app is available for everybody to use. So your clients can use it, you can use it. What David's talking about is the history on the app. The history will allow you to pull up past reports that you've previously viewed on the app. So in order to get things loaded into that history area, and I would actually recommend this anytime you're going out to do a realtor presentation or even a borrower presentation for that matter, you want to first open your Edge link in your app and then just close it out. What will happen is that Edge link will be in your history, so you can immediately hit history when you're in front of your borrower or your realtor partner and pull that presentation back up. So that's the key to it, David. It won't pull from your actual Edge account. What it'll do is it'll just pull from past links that you visited through the app. So usually, like with a realtor presentation, I'm probably going to pull up, say, a cost of waiting. I'm going to pull up a rent versus own. I might pull up an open house flyer, maybe even a seller buy down flyer, and then those will all be in my history. So then all I have to do is hit that drop down in the history, and I can click on them, and it'll immediately pull those back up for my partner to view. But all right, let's get to some tips real quick here. So I know they've drilled it into your head enough here, but your templates are always going to be the fastest way that you can get things applied inside Edge. But I'm going to show you some other time-saving features. So for instance, let's start with a brand new client. The first thing I want to do is I want to point out areas that you can actually bypass. When you're just you want to get a quick presentation out, just a quick quote for somebody, the way to do it is the features in red are the ones that are required. But nothing else in Edge is actually required to do the presentation. So generally, if you stick to the red ones, you're going to be okay. Now, there's a couple others that you always want to use, and I'm going to show you that right now. But let's isolate just the ones we need. So for instance, if we're doing this for a borrower, we obviously need the borrower name. So I'll put in my borrower name, and then friendly name. This is just so you can help identify what this report is for later. So for instance, this is a refi for second home. Now notice on that first screen I only used two fields, really three fields, the first name, last name, and the friendly name field. Now on the goals screen, if you're not actually talking to a client, these are kind of flow questions. These are ones that you're going to use if you're actually taking the app over the phone and you want to collect all the information. That's what these are for. Now, that said, there's really only one goal in here that has any logic tied to it, and that's the purchase a new home goal. Anytime you hit this goal, what's going to happen is it's going to eliminate the questions about the current mortgage. So you're just looking at purchase options. Now, in this case, as I indicated in the friendly name, this was going to be a refi for their second home. So I could check one of these other options, or I can simply leave everything unchecked in here. So I'm going to leave that unchecked. Now, in the assumptions, there is one field in red here. This is their current property value. Now, whenever you're doing a refinance, if they do happen to have mortgage insurance on this loan, you definitely want to put in the original appraised value. What this field does is it's for calculating the LTV cutoffs for your mortgage insurance. If you don't put this in, it's going to assume that the current value is the same value as it was when it was taken out. So the LTV cutoffs will be based on this value up here instead of the correct value, which was the first one that they initially put in. Now in this case, let's say that when they took this out, it was actually at 225. It's appreciated since then, but we want to make sure that our MI cutoffs are based on this 225 figure. Now, total payoff amount field, you don't have to use this, but you can. It'll actually make things a little bit faster for you if you know what the payoff is going to be. This is going to help because when you do your cash to close, Edge is going to take their new loan amount and it's going to try to pay off the current loan. Now, normally Edge is going to use the current remaining balance for that payoff, but if you choose to use this payoff amount field, it'll use this instead. Now, the reason this is helpful is oftentimes the payoff amount is slightly different from what their current balance is, depending on when they're going to close this loan. So it's up to you. You don't have to use it, but you certainly can, and it might save you a little bit of time. So again, the only fields I filled out here were current property value and original appraised value. And that's assuming I have mortgage insurance. If I don't have mortgage insurance on this one, I can leave off this original appraised value because it won't make a difference. Now for the current mortgage itself, this is the one where you can see there's a lot of red on this page. You do have to try and fill out as many of these as you can because this is what your current PITI payment is going to be calculated on. Now if you don't know a start date, that's okay. It just means that you're not going to have an accurate freedom point. So you can assume a couple years ago, let's say that my borrower just told me, yeah, I got this a couple years ago. I don't even remember when it started, but yeah, it's about 2 years in. And when they originally got it, it was for 190. Now they're going to know their rate, and they're probably going to know their term. And then you can see Edge calculates the remaining balance for you. Now if the balance is different from this, let's say your borrower's made extra principal payments, you can actually overwrite this. So let's say they've made about $3,000 worth, and their current balance is now 180. Now what Edge is going to do is it's actually going to shorten the amortization based on those extra principal payments that they made. So it's going to say, well, they paid $3,000 more than they should have. I'm going to shorten the freedom point accordingly. They have less principal to pay over time. So if I did not alter this remaining balance and I just had this 2-year-old loan, it should show 28 years left. But since I've altered this remaining balance, it's going to show us closer to maybe 26. Now taxes and insurance, this is up to you. If you are going to show taxes and insurance, just do it across the board. Make sure you do it in the assumptions area and in the new products. If you're not going to show it, that's okay, but just don't show it on any of them so you have an apples to apples look at each one of the payments. So for this case study, I'm not going to show any of them. Affordability section, this is another one with no red on the page. You can actually bypass this one anytime. If you do want to use some of these fields, things like the tax bracket field, if you don't enter a tax bracket, it won't show the tax benefit on the report, but it's up to you. You don't have to show tax benefit. And then the affordability goals, usually I end up bypassing this one. This is really for a first-time conversation with your borrower, so it's okay to skip past this. And then we'll get straight into products. So let me show you real quick. I'm going to go back to the beginning. We have 3 fields on the first page. We have no fields on the second page. When we got to the assumptions, I had 2 fields on the first one. I have about 5 fields that I need to fill in on the current mortgage. Nothing on the monthly costs, nothing in the affordability sections, and I can get straight over to products. So we're looking at about 10 total fields until we get over to our new products. Now for the new product, since we're doing a refinance, we want to tell Edge that we need to pay it off for the exact amount if we're going to do a rate and term refi. The easiest way to do that is just simply toggle this over to refi equals yes. It'll automatically pull in what you put in for the current loan amount on their current mortgage as the new payoff. So this is the new base loan amount on your new mortgage. If I did nothing else at this point, this is going to be a 0 cash to close loan. I have exactly enough of my new loan to pay off the old loan. Now naturally there's going to be some closing costs, so we need to make sure and account for those, but let's put in our new rate and our term. Now when we get to the closing costs, this is another time saver for you. If you haven't yet developed your templates, and I would of course advise you to develop your templates as much as you can. If you haven't done it, it's okay. You can still ballpark your figures. You can say that, wow, this is about a $200,000 loan. I know that for this case, I'm probably going to have about $3,000 worth of APR costs. I'm going to have probably 15 days of prepaid interest. Prepaid escrows, these are your hazard insurance reserves, tax reserves, and such. Probably going to have about 1,000 on those. And then non-APRs, I may have about 1,500 on those. That's all I needed to do. I don't need to itemize these. Remember, this is all ballpark. Now, if you do want to itemize them, it'll be faster because you can go into the detail and simply just pull down a template and fill in whatever you need to. However, both are acceptable. Remember, this is all pre-GFE, so you don't have to worry too much about this being absolutely spot on. You don't even know if they qualify yet. So last part, I'm going to skip the monthly costs because I didn't put monthly costs on that current mortgage. And the only thing I need to do is I need to go back and name this product. Instead of product 1, I'm going to call this one rate and term refi. Now, since I've got such a low LTV here, I can actually roll all these costs into the new loan, and I still won't exceed the 80% mark. I'm not going to get any hits on the rate or anything. Now, if you do have a hit for a 75% rate on this refi, you'd want to keep that in mind. However, in this case, I'm going to assume there's no hits at 75, and that as long as I don't get to 80, we're fine, which means I can go ahead and check the boxes here, and all of these costs will actually be financed into the new loan. So it's going to increase the amount financed by the amount of these costs. Now, at this point, since I've rolled them all in, I've once again got a zero cash to close scenario. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Now, in the analysis summary, you can see that we're saving them $78 a month. Now, we definitely want to do something with that, whether it's putting it back into the principal of the loan or putting it into a new investment account or even their current savings account. Remember, I didn't fill in the affordability section, so I don't have any details on their current savings. So if I was going to put this into an investment account, I'd probably want to use the bottom section of the adjust for reinvestment. I'll show you that in just a moment, though. Now the middle section, this is very important. For those of you who are brand new to using Edge, I want to explain something. The short-term savings is not the monthly savings multiplied by 60. As you can tell, this is obviously not going to be that. What the short-term area does is it compares the total interest, MI, and closing costs between each loan. The comparisons between those figures are how you're getting this savings here. So on my new rate and term refi at the 60 month, my current mortgage is still saving them money because I haven't saved enough interest in MI to overcome my closing costs. Now as we push this out, if we want to find out where they break even on this, let's try 72 months. And you can see this is going down. The current monthly savings is definitely going down here. Now the reason it's going to take so long to break even on this one is I've got $5,000 worth of closing costs, and I've only got a half a point difference between my old mortgage and my new mortgage. So it's going to take a long time to save enough interest to overcome that. So let's see what it looks like at 96. Getting closer. So this one is literally, it's going to take them over 10 years to break even on just what it costs them to close here. So if I was running into this as an originator and I found out this really is not going to benefit my borrower for a long time, one, I need to do a reinvestment strategy. If I was to put this straight back into the principal of the mortgage every month, it's going to significantly reduce the amount of interest I have to pay over time. So this break-even point is going to come a little bit faster. So let's see what that looks like. So I'll put my $78.32. And you can see now my new freedom point is 25.67 years. My old freedom point on the current mortgage was 26 2/3 years. So when we look at this, we're shaving a year off of their freedom point. That's a year less interest over the long term. Watch what it does to our short-term savings, though. You can see we've got this $362 savings. Now I'm going to tag a save on this one. Remember, these right and left arrows are your save buttons. So if I hit that one and then come back, it is now recalculated the short-term area. And you can see that at the 10-year point, because of this additional reinvestment straight back into principal, I've actually reduced the amount of interest I have to pay on this new loan pretty significantly. And now I'm showing a savings here. So I can probably go back and see what it looks like around 7 years. So if we want to find the break-even point, we want to find where this shifts over here. So let's check month 86. And there it is. So month 86 is going to be their break-even point on this if they continue making the exact same payment as they were making on their current mortgage. Now one more thing to note here. You can, instead of putting this $78 into their principal every month, you can put this into an external account. Now in order to do that, I'm going to go back into the reinvestment strategy grid, and I'm going to pull it out of term reduction. Now this part down here at the bottom is the investment area. The middle part is the savings area. So if I had entered savings information in that affordability area, it would be populating right here and I could add additional funds to that. Since I didn't do it, which is okay, I'm going to ask my partner or my financial planner, what kind of rate of return can you get me on a portfolio where I'm investing about $80 a month? He says, you know what, I can get you about 1.5% return on that. Okay, let's put our $78 in there. And you can see at the 15-year point, you've netted them about just short of $16,000 in that investment account. Now, naturally, if they were to commit a little bit more to it, they'd have a bigger nest egg here. But this is a great long-term planning asset for you. Now, oftentimes, I see what people will show two columns here. They'll show rate and term refi with a principal reduction, and then they'll copy that product to a new one and show an investment. And the reason for that is so that you can see the effects of both types of reinvestments. You know, would you prefer to put it back into the mortgage? Here's what it'll do. Would you prefer to develop a nest egg out of it? Here's where you'll be at in 15 years. Now, just one point I want to bring to your attention here on the investment area. Anytime you're doing an accumulation of any kind, which is either straight back to the savings or straight back to an investment account, for the long-term area, you want to show total net worth. And the reason for this is total net worth is their total equity plus any liquid assets that you've gained them over time. Now, their equity is a bit better on their current situation, but on this rate and term refi where we're socking money away into that investment account, we're actually going to see a pretty good difference here. So let's trigger a save and we'll come back. So we've only got $1,000 difference here, but this one has a lower equity point because we've restarted the mortgage. Remember, this one is not showing that principal reduction payment. We're only doing the investment payment right now. So we had to start over in the mortgage, which is okay, but what we've got is we've got enough of a liquid asset. We've got $16,000 in liquid assets here. So this might be a more viable alternative for your client. Net worth is going to be about the same, but on this option, you have $15,000 cash in hand at 15 years. All right, it looks like Eric has a question. He says, when I add principal repayment, let's say $100, savings listed afterwards does not lower by $100. Why is that? So kind of along the same lines as we were just talking about. Now, I assume, Eric, and you'll have to correct me on this one, when you're saying the savings shown, are you talking about the savings in this top right area here? And while Eric's answering the question, we'll get back into our reinvestment grid here. So let's pull this guy out of our reinvestment account, and I'll put the $100 right here. Now, the $100, you can see that going back in there, it is shortening their freedom point. It is shortening their loan balance. They've got $10,000 less loan balance at the 15-year point, which means greater equity. Now, we won't see it up here. And the reason is because the reinvestment is simply a suggestion. You're suggesting to your client that if they did this, these are the long-term ramifications. However, the top right corner of this quadrant is always going to be just what do the payments look like against each other. Now, if you wanted to alter this, let me show you something that you can do. You have this field called Other here, which you can use for just about anything. Now, it is going to increase the pity payment by the amount of whatever you put here, or if you do a negative, you'll actually notice it'll drop their pity payment by this amount. So if you wanted to be able to alter what the new pity payment looks like, or even a current pity payment, you can use this field to do so. So I see people doing things like this, energy savings. This is usually on purchases, obviously. And they'll put in a negative amount here. So this has effectively dropped my pity payment by $100. Now, if there was an additional fee of some kind, any monthly cost that has to be positive, you could put it in there as well. Now, if you wanted to indicate term reduction here, you can do that, but you're going to run into a little bit of a mismatch on the report because the report is already going to show that $100 principal reduction payment, and you're kind of double dipping if you put it in this field as well. Let me show you what it looks like. Let's go straight over to our presentation. Okay, so you can see that when we go into our pity payment section here, go into the payment breakdown, I have reduced the payment by $100, and you can see that evident right here. That's our that's the other field, and you can see we've also got reduction payment down here. So we're kind of double dipping on this, and it wouldn't really make sense to show it that way. But if you absolutely need to see the payment difference up in the top right quadrant, that's how you would do it. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I would allow it to just go in the regular reduction area. Eric gave me a little more clarification. He says, correct, but I noticed their balance does not go down by $100 either. Here's how you check that, Eric. When you get to your presentation area and you go to select your report, instead of choosing the total cost, choose the amortization schedule. And then we'll look at their new mortgage. Now, here's how to read this amortization schedule. There's two sides to this. The left side is what would happen on the regular payment. So they're not making any additional principal payments on this one. You can see what our total payments are going down the line, how much principal that they're paying. The right side is with the principal reduction. So as you can see, their total payment $941.64. We've added the extra $100, so now it's $1,041.64. The reduction principal is $100 higher as well. So if we look at our reduction balances, $185,498 versus without that $100 payment, $185,598. So that's how you can check on your work just to make sure that everything's going right. Now the other thing you can do, Eric, is back in that reinvestment grid, you can see it going down. I'll show you this. I pointed this out briefly earlier, but this is also a good way to check on what's going on. So the loan balance at the 15-year point, you can see that my loan balance is significantly lower with this new loan because I've been making that extra principal payment. And we're looking at $10,000 difference over a 15-year period of time. So hopefully that answers it for you, Eric. Let me know if you need any more clarification on that one. Shebel's question, he asks, how can you highlight? So what I did, and let me prepare that one more time for you, is anytime you go to your presentation screen, when you select your total cost and then run through the screens, the last screen you have is to generate an edge link. Now part of doing that, so I'll generate an edge link, and the reason I do this is because that's your save to history. That's where it starts saving things to history for you. So if you needed to see the historic iterations of this particular report, you've got to generate a link at least once, and then after that point, everything gets saved every time you exit this borrower. Now to highlight, there's one of two ways. You can either do a preview right here, or after you hit generate link, you can do the add audio video. Both of those screens will allow you to left click on anything and it'll actually highlight it. So if I go to my preview right now and I'm looking at the live version of the report, if I want something highlighted, all I have to do is left click on it. I can also clear highlights using the same technique. Now you can highlight the graphs, and it's important to note that if your borrower is looking at this presentation real time, when you make a highlight, it highlights almost in real time to him. So his version that he's looking at, he's going to see the highlights, he's going to see the graphs bounce like it's going on right here. If you pop out the more info sections, it'll pop out the more info sections on their screen. So it's really going to give them a very fluid presentation. So this is for use when you've got them on the phone. When you're talking to them, you say, hey, I'd like you to click on the link. I'd like you to take you through this report. So they open your link. You open this preview, just like I've done here. And as you're talking to your client, you're going to highlight things. Mr. Client, I want to show you my rate and term refi. You'll notice that it just highlighted on your screen there. These are the figures that are part of this new refinance that I'm suggesting. And then you can use the clear all button down at the bottom to clear off all the highlighting. Then you can steer your conversation a different way. You can say, look, here's what your monthly payment currently is, $1,019. I'm going to drop it to $841.64. I'm also going to ask you to make a principal reduction payment of $100 to go straight back into your principal every month. Now you can see that by doing this, when I'm highlighting, it's literally going to be about a second later that it's going to highlight on the borrower's end. Now you might want to do a little bit of practice with this just to see how fast your computer issues these. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to try and give you two side-by-side windows here real quick. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of imitating what the borrower experience would be like so you guys can see this. So if I'm back in my Edge and I generate a link for my borrower, I copy this link, paste it into an email and send the email out to my borrower. The borrower clicks on it. So the right side here is borrower's computer. They've clicked on the link. It has now opened up the Edge presentation. Now whatever I left highlighted the last time I was in there is still going to be highlighted on the borrower side. And you can see the borrower can't click on these to highlight or drop highlighting. Only you can. Now in order to do that, remember there's two ways. You can go through preview, or you can do Edge Live or add audio video. Both of them open an editable version of the live presentation that you can edit, you can highlight, you can pop out. So I'll do Edge Live so you guys can see that. So let's go ahead and clear off all the highlighting. And you can see that on the right side of the screen, the highlighting cleared off almost immediately. Let's get this a little wider so it looks more like the report does. So if I'm walking my client through this and I've told them, I'd like you to take a look at, here's your existing loan. You owe $180,000 on it. We're going to refi you into a new loan, and we're going to include the closing costs on it. So your new loan balance is going to be $185,843. I'd like you to notice that your original rate was 5%. The new rate I'm giving you is 4.5%. So we're going to save you money because of that. As you can see, the difference in the total payments are indicated right here. Now at that point, I would probably drive them into the more info sections. I would go into more info, and I would discuss with them what these figures mean. So for instance, I would probably need to remove this this reduction payment here. That's what we were talking about earlier, but I've got it double dipped, so I don't really want that in there. So I would go back into Edge and remove that. However, as I'm having this conversation with my borrower, especially if it's a mortgage insurance conversation, I'm going to want to draw their attention to the existing mortgage insurance and then the new lines where they're potentially buying out of it or they've got a lower MI rate. Now you can click on any of these graphs and they will bounce on both sides for you. When you go to the closing costs, the same thing happens. It automatically changes over to closing costs on their side. So if you wanted to isolate things like their APR costs, once you highlight it on your side, it's going to highlight on their side. When you close out of the more infos, it'll close out on their side. Now you can do this for each one of the quadrants. And you may find that some quadrants have more, I guess, more pertinent information that you'd like to use than others. So you probably want to run through it and just see what they're going to see and then figure out what you want to draw their attention to. Now, when you get into the short-term savings, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You really need to know how to explain this to your borrower, because if they're saying a $349 savings over an 86-month period of time, but they're noticing at the top right of their report, I'm saving $178 a month. How is that possibly only going to net me $349 over 86 months? Well, Mr. Borrower, let me explain to you how we're calculating this. What we're talking about here are the unrecoverable costs of the loan. If you take two loans for the exact same amount of principal, in the end, you're going to pay the exact same amount of principal. What you're looking to avoid is interest and MI. So what we do here in Mortgage Coach is we take the total interest and MI paid, we add that to any closing costs for that particular loan scenario, and that gives us the total cost. We then take a look at the new scenario. You're only going to pay $55,000 in interest and MI over this period of time, and there's no MI on this, so I would just say interest. But you've got $4,500 in closing costs that we're assessing on this new mortgage. So we're including that as part of your total cost. That's what gives you this $59,000 figure. That's why your savings look so minimal at this point. But remember, after this, your savings are going to grow exponentially. You've already overcome your closing costs, which means you've broken even on this loan. And any savings you're realizing after this point are going to be much more significant because you don't have to worry about overcoming those closing costs anymore. Now when you get to the long term, click open the net worth here, and you can see it does show the loan balance at the 15-year point, so you can see exactly what that $100 a month has been doing. You can see how much it's been. It's $18,000 worth of term reduction payments that have been paid, and you can see what your total principal is on each side. Now net worth is going to be their total equity plus their total liquid assets. Now if I had left that that investment strategy in there with that bottom section with the investment account at 1.5%, if I had left that in there, it's actually going to show that as part of this as well. So you'll see a rate of return and you'll see an investment balance here. Now once you're done doing that, you're pretty much done with the report. So I would say your main focus is going to be this top left quadrant when you're talking to your borrower, because this has all the details in it. Now the top right quadrant is just your monthly payments against each other. Whether you do a reinvestment or not, it's still going to show your monthly payments against each other. Now, the bottom sections are what happens if you take my recommendations. If you take my recommendation and do this $100 principal reduction payment, it's going to net you a savings over time. If you take my advice and do this investment payment for your external investment, it's going to net you a little bit of extra net worth over time. Now when you're done with all this, you can of course clear out your highlights, but remember I said earlier, whatever highlights you leave on this presentation when you close it is how your borrower is going to see it. So if I chose to, say, leave this just like this and highlight the rate and term refi, if I close out of my preview right now and I tell my borrower, he's got the link still or he refreshes or whatever, the next time he goes in there, he's going to see that highlighting. So whatever state I left it in, that's what he's going to see it in. Now that goes all the way down to the more info sections. So if you have a particular part of your presentation that you'd like them to view first, pop it out, highlight whatever you need, then close the presentation entirely. Send the link to your borrower, and when they get it, that area will be popped out and highlighted for them. Now your video will appear behind the more info sections. So it's kind of cool. They'll still hear you talking about the video if you've about the presentation as long as you've got a video there, but it'll run behind that more info section. So it's kind of almost like a narration that they can't see until they close out of that more info. So just be aware of what they see on their side. I would encourage all of you to try this. Open up two windows just like I've done here, two separate browser windows. One of them you want to view as your side of Edge. The other one, you want to paste the link into the browser bar. And this one's going to be your client side. And then just start navigating through the Edge Live and see how it reacts, see how fast it changes. Note that you can also change any other figures inside Edge. Let's say, for instance, I found out that with this new product, rates actually got a little bit better. Let me get rid of this reduction payment because it's getting very confusing. So I found out that rates got a little bit better, and instead of 4.5, I can get them 4.375. Now, note that on this side, we're still seeing 4.5. As soon as I trigger a right or left arrow here in my side of Edge, it's going to take probably 2 to 3 seconds for this to update. But once it does, you're going to see the right side. Actually, it was a lot faster than that. You see that it went to 4.375 almost right away. My highlights are still there. So if you make a change inside Edge, it's going to update the live link. You don't need to resend it to them. All right, let's see. We've got a couple questions in here. Jim's question, how do we name the report instead of just a link to send to the clients? Okay, great question, Jim. Let's see if I can pop open a new email for you. All right, here we go. So here's my email on the right, and this is going to be my borrower's email address, obviously. So check out your personal home refi report, something like that. Now what you're going to do is inside Edge, of course, you'll need to generate the link. And the easy way to do that is hold your mouse over the presentation screen. And what these are jump buttons. So it allows you to go to specific areas that are within that presentation screen. If you want to get to the very last one, click on the preview one here. It'll take you immediately to the last screen in Edge. At that point, generate your link. You want to copy it. Now inside your Outlook, what you're going to do is you're going to write the text that you want to have linkable. So for instance, please click here for your personalized presentation. Now right now there's nothing here that's a link. So if I was to click on it, nothing would happen. But what you can do is you highlight the area you want to turn into a link. Then you right click on it, choose hyperlink. Now the text to display is going to be click here. That's what we want them to see. However, the address we want it to go to, we're going to paste our Edge link in right there. Then hit OK. Now when I send this to my borrower, if they were to left click on this guy, it'll open up my Edge presentation. So we've effectively hidden the link behind the text. So hopefully that helps there, Jim. Let me know if you're working with a different email client. It might be a little bit different in things like Gmail or some of the other ones, but let me know if you need more on that. Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Eric's question, he says, when you're on live and you want to switch to something in preview sections such as the amortization schedule, can you show that to the client? Not yet, but we are, Eric, it's a great idea. We are considering making that part of the live presentation. Right now, we're just trying to figure out how to do it. I'll tell you the honest truth. When you look at this amortization schedule, especially when you have a term reduction, and let's see, do I still have one in there? Remember how wide that was. There's a lot of fields that are on the amortization schedule, and there's just no way to fit them on the screen for your client. So that's our biggest issue. Okay, good. We do have it in there. So I can also give you one other piece of artillery there, Eric. One thing you can do, and you can't pop it out for them just yet, we will be adding the functionality to pop out the payment stream for them. Right now, you can have them click on the payment stream. And they can actually see the number of payments at X amount. They can see what the ending balances are on each one going forward. So this will give them, a good idea of what the payment stream would be without any kind of a principal reduction or anything. Now, I understand the need to be able to show them that reduction side of the amortization. If you do need to show them that, you can export a schedule, and it's going to export as a CSV document, which is an Excel sheet. But let's preview this guy. So you can see there's a lot of information that shows up in this amortization schedule. There's just no way to fit it on the report right now. but we are looking into ways to make this happen for you. It may be a call-out button of some kind like the More Infos eventually, but I don't see this ever being available in print from the live version. So that being said, if you do want your borrower to be able to see this, what you would do is you would export down at the bottom here. You're going to save it to your desktop or wherever you want to save it. It'll tell you the amortization's been saved. And then assuming you can find it on your desktop, well, let's see where there it is. I'm going to open this guy up, and it automatically opens up inside Excel. Now, because it's a CSV, this is a comma separated values file. I know that means nothing. Don't worry about it. I just wanted you to know what it stands for. But a comma separated values file like this one is a stripped version of an Excel sheet. It means it doesn't have any formatting whatsoever with it. This is the easiest way to export data out of a database, so that's why we gave it to you this way. Now, if you wanted to get this over to your borrower, you're probably going to want to do things like get rid of the columns that you don't want them to see, things like, you know, the MI. They've got no MI on this loan, so I'm going to get rid of both of those columns. I'm also going to get rid of it on the reduction side. So now I'm just focusing on the balances. Now, a quick and easy trick in Excel in order to be able to make sure that all your labels show correctly, highlight the entire form, and you can do that by clicking the very top left corner. And then any one of these vertical lines, if you double click on it, it'll expand that field out so that it's at least as big as the biggest number or the biggest set of letters in that field. Now, at this point, I'd probably still want to remove a couple of things that may not mean a whole lot to my borrower so that I can just show them just the isolated parts that I want. But especially if you're dealing with MI, I'm probably going to want to go in here. I'm going to highlight the area where the MI drops off. You know, I'm going to show them that their reduction balance, and you can do highlighting like that, the reduction balance versus their regular balance is $100 apart because we're asking them for $100 more in principal. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to show them where their freedom point is. And if we scroll all the way down here, you can see that on the left side, they're still paying after month 298. But on the right side, this is where they've done the principal reduction payment. They've got a zero balance at month 298. And if we go a little further on the left side, you can see where it pays off for our current mortgage. Now at that point, I'd probably want to go up and save this. Now if you want your formatting to stick, when you go to save, do save as. And instead of a CSV, when you save it, you're going to save it as an XLS file. So you can save it either as this one here, just regular XLS, or this is the newest form of Excel, XLSX, but I would tell you that I would probably choose this one, and the reason is because some people might have older versions of Microsoft Office, and if they've got an older version, they can't open the new form, but all of them can open this one. So I choose the 97 to 2003 workbook. Now once you've done that, it's going to put the XLS on the end of it, so it's not going to be a CSV file anymore. You can now hit save, and you can send this out to your borrower. And when you do, all your formatting, highlighting, whatever you left on here is going to stick the way you left it. If you were to save this as a CSV again, it won't. It'll strip it right back off. Oliver's question, on one Edge presentation, the presenter used a hashtag to name the report and enter it into Edge Coach mobile app. How did he do that? So what we did, Oliver, that was a little bit of me pulling the strings behind the curtains. When you generate a link in Edge, it generates, and let me get this back up for you. It uses our short link generator to give you a new link. Now, what this means is that on the mobile app, you really only need the last digits on the end of the link. So let me show you what that looks like. So if your borrower's already downloaded the app, all they have to do is enter this part right here, starting at the 1-6. If they enter that into the app, it'll open up the report. And if you guys are following along on your iPads, iPhones, or Droids right now, if you've got the mobile app open, try entering just these last digits here. Now that's going to pull up the presentation without having to do the entire link. Now naturally, if they've got the app installed and they click on one of your links, they tap it, it's automatically going to open to that presentation. But especially for cases of presenting to your partners and such, if you want to enter it in really quickly, all you have to do is enter this part. Now what I did for a couple of those 10-day events is I actually changed our short links on there to be something that you guys can type in easier. Now you don't have that ability to do it on your side. I actually had to go into the server and modify those names. So unfortunately that is not a characteristic available to you, But just remember, you only really need this part on the app, and it'll work just fine. Eric's question, are you able to paste anything on a non-live presentation, such as the graph of rates over the past year, etc.? On a non-live, I'm assuming you're meaning the PDF or print versions, Eric. And if that's the case, you would actually need a PDF printer to be able to do that. There's no way to paste it onto a PDF because it's locked for editing unless you actually have an editor. If you've got a full version of Adobe Acrobat, that'll do it. There's actually quite a few out there that work really well. There's you can even do a print to PDF function inside of Edge to turn it into a PDF, and as long as your print to PDF printer has an editor in it, you can do that. Some of the ones I'd recommend if you wanted to go with a cheaper one than Adobe, because Adobe is very expensive, go with maybe Foxit, F-O-X-I-T, or Nitro. Those are two really cheap PDF editors that allow you to, insert images, text. You can actually even change some of the text that's already on there. But you can change the entire layout if you wanted to. Everything becomes an object on the PDF that you can delete, edit, or add. And Eric, your second idea there, or do we just paste it on the introductory email that we send to the client? That is really the better idea, because you don't have to worry about editing, a piece that you already created. Instead, you're going to put it in your email, and that's actually where the RateWatch charts come in really handy. You can right-click on those RateWatch charts and hit copy, and then you can paste that directly into the body of the email. And that tends to work out really well, because it actually won't come across as an attachment. It comes through in the body. All right. Dave had a little bit more on the Edge app. He says, not sure I understand. I think I've done that. I opened up Edge on my computer, view the report, is then supposed to go to the history on the phone. No, it'll only show up as history on the phone if you've opened it on the phone. So what you would do, Dave, is send yourself a link to your presentation. So open up your email client, send it to yourself, and then retrieve that email on your phone. So instead of checking it from the computer, check it on the phone. Then click on the link on your phone. It'll open that presentation in your Edge app. From then on, that presentation will be in your app history. So it's got to open on your phone before it can be in the history. So hopefully that helps there, Dave. Let me know if you need a little bit more on that one. Liliette's question, she says, you said the client is able to see Edge Live via Edge Live or add audio video. Is this correct? Yes, absolutely. In fact, there's 3 places. So there's Edge Live, which is the one I was showing you earlier. There's Add Audio Video, which realistically, these two do exactly the same thing. The only difference with the Add Audio Video is that it puts extra buttons down at the bottom so that you can actually record. But other than that, the presentation itself is exactly the same. So you can highlight, you can pop out, you can use either one of these, or the third area, you can use the preview button. It does exactly the same things. There's just no additional buttons on it. So as you can see, anytime you have a clear all button down here at the bottom, you can operate Edge Live. So that's really going to be your key. You can do it from the preview mode, you can do it from the Edge Live button, or you can do it from the Add Audio Video button. It looks like Dave Savage has joined us on this call today. So Dave actually recommends that everyone should have a few key Edge strategies on your mobile device so you're ready for that realtor conversation. So like I was talking about earlier when we were talking to Dave Meserve, we're talking about having a couple presentations that are just ready to roll in your history. That's what he's trying to do. So what I would tell you is there's some that are always going to be really effective. One, any co-branded piece is going to be a very effective presentation piece for you, whether it's a seller buy down, an open house flyer. Those are both going to have the co-branding on them. And then beyond that, you want to have a rent versus own available. You want to have a cost of waiting available. And then you want to have a basic annual review. Now, the reason I say that these 5 presentations would probably be the most important ones is because these are all door openers. These either speak to what you can do to help co-brand with your partner, or they speak to what you do to continue the relationship with the client. Now, of course, remember, anytime you send out any reports to the client, you want to copy in the realtor partner so the realtor can see what you're doing. It brings them in the loop. It gives you that added transparency. And, when it comes down to it, that's all they're looking for. They just want to know that you are giving the best service possible to this mutual client. It means that you're going to get more referrals out of it. So to sum up again, the 5 presentations you want to bring with you, you want to bring And you can tone it down to 4 if you're not yet quite comfortable with a seller buy down strategy. I would say it's very powerful and you should study it, but if you don't know what it does yet, go to our help menu, type in seller buy down, and watch the video. It's going to give you a full explanation on what's available there. It's a huge door opener for expired listings, listings that have had price reductions already. It's a great way in the door. Now, beyond that, remember the open house flyer because you want the co-branding. And then you want to give them an annual review so they can see what kind of a presentation you do every year for your borrowers. They want to know that you're going to stay on top of it. It's not just a single transaction. You're now going to be their trusted mortgage advisor for life, which means every year you're going to revisit this and you're going to say, okay, well, last year you refied at 5%. I can get you 4.5% right now. Or the obverse side of that coin, last year you refied at 4.5%. Rates are up at 5 right now. It doesn't make sense to refi, but I wanted to let you know that I'm still looking out for you. So, and Pam's actually asking for those reports again. So you want a rent versus own. You want a cost of waiting. You want an annual mortgage review. You want an open house flyer for the co-branding. And if you're comfortable enough with it yet, you want a seller buy down strategy. Those 5 presentations are going to be some key points that when your partner sees those, partner knows that you're covering all the bases. Not only are you looking out for this relationship that you're trying to develop with this partner, that's the co-branding part, you're also looking out for the borrower relationship going forward. But then the third thing, things like the cost of waiting. The cost of waiting is a marketing presentation that they can actually send out to their clients to show them what happens if, hey, look, right now is a great time to buy, but if you wait until rates go up a little bit or prices go up a little bit, it can be pretty detrimental. So it's one of those ones that's going to get their prospective clients off the fence. And of course, more transactions for them, it means more transactions for you. Oh, so actually Dave brought up another point real quick here. One of the things that Jeremy Forcier was talking about in his 5 questions for realtors, he's talking about providing a value proposition. You know, if I did this, what would happen? And when we talk about the annual mortgage review, we're talking about a service that you do for your borrowers going forward. And the question that you can bring into your realtor partners is, 1, do any of your other lenders do this? And 2, if I did this, if I could continue to make sure that all of your clients are taken care of and copy you in the entire way, would you find that a beneficial add to your business strategy? Very simple question, but how can you possibly say no to that? So keep that in mind. I would say that's kind of a branch off on one of Jeremy's questions, but Jeremy is talking about, you know, a value add that you can offer. And asking them a question about why is nobody else doing this for you? It's a very simple way to make the realtor look inside and go, wait a minute, I'm missing something here. Maybe this person can help me with it. All right, so let's get to another couple of quick tips that can save you some time here. One is going to be your templates. I know we discussed these earlier, and we talked about how you can ballpark, but if you develop your templates, it's going to make life a lot easier for you. Now, the easiest way to do this is print out a couple of fee worksheets. You know, start with just one. Start with just your FHA standard 3.5% down purchase. Print out a fee worksheet from your loan origination system. Now, it's going to come out and it's going to show you what all the fees are, and they're going to be line itemed for you already. All you need to do then is go into your settings, go to your fee templates, and you're going to hit the new button. And you're going to call this one FHA 3.5% down purchase. Now, if you want to make this available for specific states, you can choose which states you want to have this for. However, if you don't choose a state, it'll be available for all of them. So this is just another way to further refine your templates. If you have different templates that you need to use for different states, just make sure and assign the state that's appropriate for them. If you leave it blank, it's available for all of them. Now, once you've got this new fee template in place, there's no line items yet, so you're going to need to add line items. So the quickest way is just add a bunch of fees. Just keep hitting this add fee button. And what I like to do is I like to reduce the size of my screen here. And I like to bring up on my right side that fee worksheet that I've PDF'd. So from Point or Encompass, you can export a PDF of that fee worksheet. In Point, it's actually just called fee worksheet. In Encompass, it's 2010 GFE. So either way, they produce the same information. It shows you all the fees that are associated with this transaction, and you can literally look at the line items on your fee worksheet and start duplicating it over here. So for instance, I'm going to have loan origination. I'm going to have appraisal. I will have credit. And notice the quick way to do this, I'm actually typing the first letter of each one of these fees in order to get to that part in the list. I'm going to have owner's title. I'll have lender's title. I'll have hazard insurance reserves. I'll have tax reserves. And we would keep adding more, so things like notary, if there was a pest inspection necessary. So you'd put all these in there, just like I've done here. And you're going to go through and enter the ones that are not variables. So things like the appraisal, this is always going to be the same for you. $650, $700, something like that. Credit report, $25. Owner's title, this might be variable. So I'm going to leave this one empty for now. This one's usually going to be paid by the seller though. So I'm going to indicate the seller would pay for that. Lender's title could be variable as well. So we're going to leave that one blank. Hazard insurance and tax reserves. These ones are always variable. So even if the ones above you have static figures for, these hazard insurance and tax reserves, you're always going to leave these as zeros in your templates. Notary fee, it's always going to be about the same. And those will be the same. Now, when you're doing a purchase, I will tell you that loan origination, you notice you can't enter it as a percentage here. The reason we did this is because when you do a percentage right here, Edge doesn't yet know what the total amount financed is because you can add fees to the loan amount. That means you can increase the amount financed using these checkboxes. So this, if I put a 1% in here, it would be off the base loan amount, not off the total financed loan amount. Now that said, on purchases, you're usually not going to roll the fees into your loan amount. So if you need to, and I've recommended this for a couple of our bigger clients, add a custom fee, call it loan origination. It's okay to use the same titles. You want it to calculate on the loan amount, and you do want it to default to be an APR. Hit OK. Now I've got a loan origination line where I can enter my 1%. So now that's available for me. I don't have to calculate it out. So I'm really just looking at 4 things that I need to eyeball on individual transactions. Now hazard insurance and tax reserves, pretty simple. As long as you know your guidelines, you know how many months they're going to need for those, you're going to need to multiply it by what their monthly costs are. Now that's another area here where you notice we have grays. Edge doesn't know what the monthly costs are when you're in these fee templates, so we can't give you a multiple just yet. Now we are looking into ways to make this happen for you. We're thinking of actually reversing the screens for the closing costs and the monthly costs area so that Edge knows what those hazard insurance and taxes are, and we can give you multiples going forward. So we're looking to do that sometime down the line here. It's a big project, so don't expect it immediately, please. But do know that we do have this in mind. We definitely want to make this as easy as possible for you, so that's going to be one of the things we'll work on very soon. All right, so once you're done with this template, it's ready to go. It's always going to be available, so all you need to do is pull it down into your presentation, make some minor mods to some of the pricing here, and then you're ready to roll. Now, Doug's question, is there a way to delete fee templates? So exactly the same screen, and let me open it up a little bit bigger for you. When you're in the fee template screen in your settings, you can left-click on any of these guys and get rid of them. So for instance, this QA Thursday that I had a while back, if I wanted to get rid of that, I would just hit delete. It'll ask you, are you sure? You hit yes, it's a goner. Now, if you want to edit your custom fees that you've created, you can go in here and hit fees. This shows you a list of all the custom fees that you've created. And you can see in the sample account, I've only created one of them. But if I'd created multiples, I'd see them all here. You could literally left-click on those ones and delete those as needed. Oliver's question, are the costs itemized on the Edge report for the client to view per line item? Yes, absolutely. So let's go back in there real quick. And I'll go to one where I itemized. All right, here it comes. Okay, so this is one where I actually itemize the fees. So if you go into the more info section here, You guys may remember this if you were on the 10 days of training. This was the MI comparison day where we showed different types of MI, whether it's conventional monthly, an FHA, lender paid, or a single premium buyout. If you haven't seen that, please do go back and revisit that. If you need a link to it, just send us a note over here at support, and we'll get you a link to the entire playlist. Okay, so back in the closing costs area, you can see we've got the ballparks here. But anytime, and the borrower can see this too, you click on fee detail, whether it's through Edge Live or you have them click it, it will pop out the actual fee detail. So they'll be able to see exactly how much those are for, who's paying them. They'll be able to see which ones are APR fees, which ones are prepaid escrows. If you're doing a refinance, it would show them which ones have been financed into the loan as well. So keep this in mind when you're doing Edge Live. You can pop these out for your borrower, and it will pop up on their side as well. Frank's question, when I open mine side-by-side windows, they're partial views. How can I make a full screen side-by-side? So that may be just a limitation on how big your monitor is, Frank, but let me see if I can show you. One thing you can do, let's reduce this guy. When you go to the very top of any browser window just like this, you hover your mouse over it, you get this double-sided arrow. You can actually double left-click on this, and it'll open it up to the max that the screen can support. So same thing on either side. Now, if you've got a laptop that has a very short vertical height on it, it's gonna actually cover some of this up. See, this is probably what you're seeing down here, where you're missing part of the graphs because your laptop just isn't that tall. There's not a whole lot you can do to get around that on the laptop for right now. What you can do though is when you're presenting to your borrower and you don't need the side-by-sides, you can actually hit F11 on your keyboard. It'll take this to full screen. And what full screen does is it actually eliminates the, let me see if I can get it to go for you. I don't know if I can in GoToMeeting, but it eliminates your toolbars just temporarily. And it uses the maximum of the available screen for you to view the presentation. And this actually might be something that you want to advise to your clients when you're doing your video. Mr. Client, if you can't see the graphs on the bottom, you may have some toolbars that are getting in the way. Please hit F11 on your keyboard, and it'll maximize to full screen. When you're ready to get out of full screen, just take your mouse up to the top right and you can hit minimize again. Now that's F11 if you'd like the F key. There's also, you can do it as like in Chrome right here, you can hit this guy and that'll maximize to absolute full screen. And you can see that's removed all my toolbars. I now have the max viewable area available. When I want to get out of it, just take your mouse up to the top. You can hit exit full screen. When you're in Internet Explorer, when you take your mouse to the top, you'll actually see those little characters at the top that allow you to minimize, reduce, and maximize. All right. And thanks, Jack, for attending. I appreciate you coming by. I know you've got to go. Have a good one today. Frank, let me know if that did or did not answer your question. I can give you a little bit more detail on that. And let's get back over into Edge for just a second. I do want to show you one more thing before we call it for the day. In your settings, and I know we were talking about fee templates. Remember I told you you only need to do one. Just start off with one. Now, after you've done one, you can copy these. You don't have to do all the legwork every single time. If I found that I've got a really good purchase template here, and it's got all the details that I'd like to see for additional purchase templates, maybe I want to do a VA purchase out of this, I want to do a USDA. What you can do is left-click on the one you want to copy, then do Save As. And I'm going to call this one VA Purchase, and hit OK. Now once you've done that, you can see it copied that template. I've now got one called VA Purchase. It has all the exact same things as I had in my 30-year fixed purchase. So I'd want to make some minor edits according to what my VA transactions look like. But again, just a couple of quick, easy keystrokes, and I've managed to copy a template and reduce my legwork going forward. So I would highly advise, you want to have about 8 to 12 templates, depending on what kind of loans you do. You want to have an FHA template, a USDA, a VA, and a conventional. Now, those are the main four, but you want to have a purchase and a refi for each of them. It's going to reduce it. Anytime you come into Edge, you've got a template now available for it. So I would highly advise have those 8 templates at a minimum. If you've got extra templates, like you've got Chaffa loans that you do, or you do single premium buyouts a lot, or you have additional types of silent seconds that you do, make sure and develop templates for those as well so that you've got those available to you. But as long as you've got those top 8, that's going to cover 90% of what you do in this business. So that'll certainly reduce your data entry by a significant amount. But all that said, I think we've just hit the 10 o'clock mark, so I'm going to respect your time. I'm going to let you go today. Thank you very much for attending. This has been recorded, so if any of you would like to see the recording of this, all you have to do is click on Help, and actually the easiest way, just go straight to the Mortgage Coach website. And that's just mortgagecoach.com. Hover your mouse over Community, and then choose Coaching Call Archive. Now, each one of these calls that we do, as you can see, we've got Dave's Tuesday calls in here. We've got our Thursday calls in here as well. We're going to have one more entry in December here, and that's going to be today's call. That will be here by the end of the day. But if you'd like to revisit some of the past calls, this is the way to do it. They're all earmarked with what they are. They do have subject lines on them. So if you ever have any questions that you're not seeing an immediate answer to in either our knowledge base or from our support center, a lot of these things, like when Scott Cummings comes on, I get the question a lot, what kind of an email should I be sending out to my partners? Well, check out Scott. Scott's got some great emails on there that give you a good idea of what type of verbiage you should use. Obviously, you don't want it to be cookie cutter. It's got to be something that represents you. But these guys are doing it, and they're doing it right. So check these out. These are definitely going to be helpful for you for developing your specific strategy. But again, thanks everybody. I do appreciate you joining us. This call will be up here by the end of the day today. And of course, if you have any questions, shoot us a quick note over at support@mortgagecoach.com. We're always happy to help. Thank you. Take care and happy holidays.